In this video, we're going to learn how to use the intersection observer in JavaScript to monitor changes in the visibility of an element within a viewport. Hey guys, and welcome to Zool Coding. Let's say you want to find out if an element is visible in its container. For example, when I scroll down this page, I want to fade in the images that become visible, and fade them out if they're not. We'll first cover the basics of intersection observer, which only requires a few lines of JavaScript code to get started, and then we'll see how to build this functionality. All the code in this video is available from the links in the description down below. So let's start by seeing how intersection observer works. To set up an observer, we first create a new intersection observer and pass in a callback function that will be called every time a change occurs, and some options as a second argument. We then call observe and pass in the element that we want to check. In the callback function, the first argument is a list of entries. This is essentially a list of changes that occurred. For each change, we can get the respective element with a target property and check if the element is intersecting with the isIntersecting property. This is essentially used to see if it's visible in the container. In the options, we can specify what actually is the containing element using the root property, or leave this as null or undefined to use the entire viewport as a container. We can also specify the root margin that I'll demonstrate in just a moment, and the threshold that tells the observer how much of the element we want to see visible. If we want the whole element to be visible before doing anything, we can set this to 1. Let's take a look at this visualizer that demonstrates how intersection observer works. The link to this is in the description. As you can see here, we've got a container being this white box, and it contains a pink box that's currently in view. The grey squares at the top and bottom show the threshold, and so when I scroll down you can see the square eventually changes colour as it goes out of view because it doesn't meet the threshold. As I continue scrolling down, you can see another box turning pink as it comes into view, and if I change these values on the side, we can see that the root margin affects the threshold like so. And if I set this back to 0 and adjust the threshold to 0.5, now only half the grey box is over the container, meaning that half of the element would need to be visible. Now that's covered, let's look at a real-world example in practice. I've got a HTML file here with some images, each in their own container, and I've got some styles above to manage the fade animation for when those images come into view as we scroll down the page. When the visible class is set on an image container, we set the opacity to 1 and reset the transform to make it look like the image is floating upwards slightly. I've also got a script file set to defer, so it'll run once the page is ready. In the JavaScript file, I've gone ahead and created a function that will set up the intersection observer with some options that we saw earlier. For now, I've set the threshold to 0.2, which means the image container would need to be at least 20% visible before it fades in. Down below, I'll create the intersection observer using a callback function that will loop through the entries that we get, not forgetting to pass in the options as well. And then if the element here is intersecting or visible, we'll go ahead and add the visible class. Then down below, let's call observe on each image container, and I'm going to call this function once a load event is fired, meaning all the images will have loaded by the time we run the function. Let's test it out. As I load the page, the images currently in view fade in, and as I scroll down, we can see the other images are fading in also. Given that the images won't fade out at any time, we can improve performance by unobserving an image element, thanks to the second parameter here, which is a reference to the observer itself. All we need to do is call unobserve and pass in an entry.target, and that'll stop checking that element for any changes. Alternatively, we can instead fade out images if we wanted to, like so. And now when I scroll through the page, you can see the images are fading out as they go out of view. If you've got a spare moment, take a look at the suite of desktop and Android apps that I made that are all open source, and check out Ablas to brush up on your language skills for free. The link to these projects is in the description down below. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this video and subscribe to keep up to date with the latest from Zool Coding. Thanks for watching and I'll see you soon.